All right, I'm live. This is probably going to be pretty quick, you guys. So give me just a second to check something and then I will get started. I hope you all have had a great week. We are finally in the home stretch. I hope you all have had a great week. Okay, so I want to talk about this Ayesha Curry situation and listen. I want to let y'all know I'm not going to drag her because it's going to be enough people doing that, okay? But I want to give my opinion because I think I get what her issue is. And it's not just her. I think this is something that a lot of people go through. It's something that my friends and I used to call basically being a localized version of being hot. So, for example, Ayesha Curry, I think she's from Toronto and she was raised in Charlotte, North Carolina. So she probably grew up being Charlotte hot. You know what I'm saying? So what that basically means is that in the town that you're from, you might be amongst one of the most attractive people, right? Especially, given that she spent a lot of her younger years in Charlotte. Charlotte is the South, and in parts of the South, women who are lighter skinned tend to be prized in certain areas, okay? And so, hey, psychologist. Yeah, I think the thing with Ayesha is she doesn't communicate her thoughts very well. So that's why she's always in these situations where she says something publicly and it just doesn't go over well. So I think in her local town, she was, excuse me for saying it, but she was the shit. She was the hot girl, she was the pretty girl. And maybe when she initially met Steph Curry, she was the one in the relationship who was the quote unquote highly prized one, right? Especially because there are some guys that are kind of built like Steph Curry where they're really tall and lean. It takes them a little while to grow into their features. Do you know what I'm saying? So maybe they look kind of awkward, but then as he got older and he started with the workouts more, then it's kind of like, oh, okay. So I think Ayesha's dealing with two things. She's no longer the hot girl in the town that she's in, and she's no longer feeling like she's the most desirable one in the relationship. And see, I come from a part of the country where it's not like a small town, but maybe it's kind of like a mid-sized metropolitan area. And so this is a part of the country where a lot of people grow up here and they move other places, right? So you may have someone that was your prom queen or, the captain of your football team, just the really hot girl or the hot guy. And then they move to a larger metropolitan area. And not only are they no longer the most attractive person in the room when they go places, they can't even sit with the most attractive people in the room. Do you know what I'm saying? They go to larger parts of the country or parts of the world and realize that in those places, they're just average. And so they can no longer rely on their looks to get them attention because they're borderline average in those new places. And I honestly think that is Ayesha Curry's problem. She woke up one day, walked into a room, and looked around and realized that she was no longer the hottest girl in the room. And that she was not even amongst the top percentage of the baddest bitches in the room. Do you know what I'm saying? And so I think that can be very jarring for some people. You know, I don't think it's I don't think it's them trying to be arrogant. It's just that they grew up amongst a collective that puts them on a pedestal and never prepares them for the fact that, okay, at some point, your looks aren't going to be enough. I think that's why Kim Kardashian is doing an image change, you know, because she's in her mid 30s, maybe even approaching late 30s now. And she realizes, you know what, being Kim K, being super fashionable, you know, getting the surgeries to look the way she wants to look is no longer enough for her to stand out in the spaces that she's in. So she's got to work a little more on her personality. Maybe she has to work more on, you know, her charitable works. Why? Because even though she has her own money and her own businesses, she's amongst a social class of people where, listen, a lot of the men are married to women who are, you know, doing much more than focusing on like makeup and skincare products. You know what I mean? A lot of women who are married to wealthy men, they're involved in charitable organizations. Maybe they've started up their own organizations, they started up their own businesses. They tend to be very industrious and enterprising women. Why? Because in my opinion, if a guy just wants a woman to be arm candy, those are the guys that stay single, and every couple of years, you know, they find a new, younger woman. When they want to settle down, they find a woman of substance. A perfect example of that is George Clooney. George Clooney spent decades, you know, dating models, and every couple of years, he would break up with one and get a new one. But the woman he married, yeah, she's attractive, she's fashionable, but she's also a very intelligent woman. I think she's like some sort of international lawyer or something like that. So she's a woman of substance. And I think that, you know, depending on where you're from, if you're from one of these places where a lot of people end up moving to larger areas, you probably know someone who was the man in their hometown, and then they go somewhere else and it's like they're just regular. You know that girl who just was turning heads everywhere she went in her hometown, and she goes somewhere else and she's just average. You know? Okay, you said a significant portion of your family is from North Carolina. Yep. People are pretty colorist in the South. Oh, she initially declined him. That's interesting. Yeah, because I mean, I think that Steph Curry, I mean, I don't know if I think Steph Curry is attractive because of his looks or because he's a millionaire. You know, money will make a man attractive. You know, Bill Gates and Jay-Z are perfect examples of that, right? So, but Steph Curry is not an ugly dude. You know, I don't think he's like super fine, but he's not an ugly dude. But you combine the fact that he's a naturally tall man, he has a certain amount of athleticism, and he's a millionaire several times over, women are going to approach him all the time. And I do think that when these women get with certain men, their concern should not be about whether or not women are paying attention to their man. Their concern should be whether or not their dude is loyal and faithful to them. Hey, Garage. What do you think was the good thing about what she said? Because I get the insecurity part. I get it. And see, I think that if she had had this conversation with her friends, like in a private space, they would have gotten it. Particularly if she was talking to other women who are married to or in relationships with highly sought after men, right? They would have gotten that basically she was saying, she knows her man could find a younger, more attractive version of her anytime he wanted to. And he basically has a pool of highly sought after women that want him. And she is not in that same position, because I don't really think she lives a public life. She's mostly doing the mom thing and stuff like that. And so I get the insecurity part of it. I'm just saying, I'm telling you, it made me think of something that me and my friends used to talk about when we were in college. Because where we went to college at is in a very small town. Pretty much the biggest thing in that town is the college. And so in my group of friends, there were some people who were actually from that local town. And we used to always say, some of the people in this town are, they're hot here. They're beautiful in this town, or, for guys, they're handsome in this town. But if you stick them in another part of the country or another part of the world where there's a lot of people, they're going to be lucky if they're considered above average. I see your point, Garage. I see your point. Men are viewed as more desirable as they get older, particularly men who have money. Yeah. It's okay, Garage. I get it. As women get older, we typically are seen as less attractive and less desirable. Like that part of it, I get. I'm just saying, I think that there's another piece here though, where I'm telling you, some people who come from certain parts of the country, or they were raised in certain parts of the country, they never realize that when they go other places, they're not going to be the most attractive person in the room. Oh, that's cool. Okay, she has a line with CoverGirl and a cookbook and a chef show. Yeah, I mean, psychologists, that's the reality. You a unless a guy is completely disrespectful, if a man knows that you're married and you have children, and particularly if you're married to a guy who's a public figure that is well respected, other guys aren't going to approach you out of respect for your husband, A, and B, the guys who would approach you just want you for sex. Because they know your situation. She may have some concern about the double standard. I don't know if Ayesha Curry has that much depth to her to think about that. The wholesome family woman with kids. See, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think that most guys wouldn't even try to approach her. I mean, the only guys that would try to approach her would maybe be guys in Steph Curry's social class. But look at what happened. What is that guy's name? Is it Matt Barnes? I think it's Matt Barnes and his ex-girlfriend or ex-wife. And some guy that was either on his team or was like a coach or something went after, I think it's Gloria Govan, like went after her and ended up having an affair with her, and all of this stuff, and that publicity just didn't go over well for that guy, and I think that dude actually ended up losing his job or being moved to a different team. So it's kind of like, I just think, like I said, a guy would have to be a complete jerk to be in Steph Curry's social circle and, try to make a move on Ayesha Curry. I think part of the reason the guys don't approach her is just because they assume that they're not going to be able to compete with her husband. I see your point, Garage. Right. It was supposed to be his friend, and it ended up being this huge controversy. So I just think that a lot of the guys in that social class just won't go there when it comes to each other's wives. And so I think they don't approach her out of respect for Steph, and then possibly out of respect for her as well, because a lot of her public statements have suggested that she wouldn't want that type of attention because she's always encouraged women to not be attention seeking. And, she was kind of saying stuff that was problematic in the past, to keep a man, you have to do all these things. And maybe because she's matured a little bit, she realizes, okay, you can be the cleanest woman in the world. You can be the best cook in the world. You can please him sexually, okay? And if he doesn't want to be faithful, none of that stuff is going to matter. So maybe she's realizing that now. But I don't know. I just wanted to give my opinions in a way where I'm not dragging her, because I feel like everyone's doing that. Right. Yeah. She does seem very strong-minded, but I'm telling you, I look at her and I see a woman who is having trouble dealing with the fact that she walks in spaces and she's no longer turning heads the way that she probably did in Charlotte, North Carolina. Like if she had married like a blue collar guy, and was still kind of in a southern town, then this wouldn't be an issue. She'd still be getting a lot of attention from men, because she'd be in a place where she'd basically be like the big fish in a small pond. Do you know what I'm saying? But now, like I said, you're in spaces where all of the women, whether they're groupies or even if they're not groupies, her husband could work around women. Maybe they're like into sports medicine, so they're doctors or whatever. So every woman basically that he's around is probably at least as attractive as Ayesha or more attractive. So she goes into spaces now and she's just average in that space. Yeah, I don't think she deserves to be dragged in the way that she's being dragged. But I do think part of what she said, it's not going to go over well. It's not going to go over well when you're a woman who's married to a man who's a multimillionaire who, as far as we know, is faithful to you. It's not going to go over well when you basically say to the world that this man's attention is not enough for you, when this man is affording you a lifestyle that the average person can only dream of. Part of her statements did come across as ungrateful, because it's like, okay, girl, not only is it ungrateful, but it's kind of, I don't know. I felt like it was kitchen table talk. I feel like that's stuff you say privately. You don't say it publicly because it's not going to go over well. Yeah, she has a unique look because I think both of her parents are biracial. And so I think one of her parents is like Black and Polish, and the other one is, let me look. The other one is, okay, her mom is Jamaican and Chinese. and her dad is Black American and Polish. So, you know, when you have that kind of look and you're in a southern town, I'm telling you, everywhere you go, you're turning heads, you know? But let me pull up what she said in the past. Some psychologists, some women did feel like she was a pick me. Let me see if I can find it. Because right now, everything that's coming up on her is this recent stuff on Red Table Talk. Let's see. And I get the fact that she doesn't want women like lurking around her husband, because it is disrespectful, you know, to know that a man is married and just throwing yourself at him. Let me see. See if I can find it, because she made comments about women cooking and all of this stuff. Shoot. Okay. Here we go. Okay, it was back in 2016. She tweeted, "Everyone into barely wearing clothes these days, huh? Not my style. I like to keep the good stuff covered up for the one who matters." And then she said, "Just looking at the latest fashion trends, I'll take classy over trendy any day of the week." And then, you know, you had a lot of women who basically felt like she was slut shaming other women. Okay, so those comments were back in 2015. And then let me look at this other thing from 2016. It's taking a second to come up, you guys. I'm sorry. Okay. So, and what this article says, and I'll drop the link in the chat, but it said that because of her motherhood, her cooking show, and her low-profile demeanor, men began to associate her with purity and faithfulness through the internet. She became a symbol rather than a unique person, and a tool for pitting women against each other. But in 2016, people basically saw another side of her because she started tweeting about people calling her out of her name and wishing pain on her family, I guess in response to some of the things that she said. And then she started saying that, you know, she felt like the NBA was rigged for money or ratings. Let's see. And so this is when people basically started saying that they felt like she should be seen and not heard. So this is an interesting article, so I'll post this in here. So she's been problematic to people for a while, but I could be wrong, but I don't think she does it on purpose. But that's why I just think that she's a person who has to be careful about speaking publicly, because the way she says stuff just doesn't go over well. Oh, your mom said she was being a spoiled brat. I mean, I just feel like I said, on the one hand, I get where she's coming from. You know, you're a woman, and even though, you know, she's a woman that will probably age very well, you know, but she's a woman, she's getting older. If she's not in a situation where she has a pool of men waiting to swoop her off, you know? Whereas her husband, he will always make money, whether it's through the NBA, whether it's through endorsements, he'll always be in a position to make money. And he's had a good career in the NBA. So, he's always going to be someone who's recognized and respected. And women are always going to pursue him because they want access to his money. And I think that makes her feel a little insecure. But the place that comes from to me, and it's like you said, psychologist, she has led with her looks. And that's kind of like, I've seen this happen to women because I'm in my 30s now. And so a lot of the women that I knew growing up, like, maybe we knew each other in high school or college, and they just had to rely on being pretty, because being pretty gave them access to certain spaces and certain men, right? So they get into those spaces, but then as they get older, in order to hold people's interest or in order to be seen as having something to offer, you have to come to the table with more than your looks. And I think that's a very frightening feeling for some women. And frankly, I think that the Black collective does not prepare certain women for the fact that that day will come. Like, okay, you need to be like Amal Clooney and have something to rely on other than your looks. You need to be able to pull a Kim Kardashian, right? And be able to have something to fall back on other than the fact that you look a certain way or you have curves. And I think that in some ways, brown skin and darker skin women kind of go through the opposite, because so many of us are kind of overlooked when we're younger. And then as we get older or we move up in our careers and we move in different spaces, we realize that we are desired. Do you know what I'm saying? So I've heard a lot of women who may be like brown skin or dark skin Black women say that, they didn't really think of themselves as being pretty or desired until they moved in different spaces, right? Whereas I think it might be the opposite for some biracial women. It may be the opposite for them because when they're younger, amongst the Black collective, they are the highly desired women and girls by Black men. Do you know what I mean? And so then as they get older and they move in certain spaces, if you're Ayesha Curry, you probably walk into a room full of attractive women who are maybe, biracial, racially ambiguous, or non-Black. You walk into a room full of women that basically have your same look. So you don't stand out anymore. And I think that can be very jarring for some women. And I think aging in general can be very uncomfortable for some of us as women, regardless of race and complexion. I'm just saying that when you're part of a group that's kind of placed on a pedestal, I don't know. I think it can be really uncomfortable for them because I don't think the Black collective does a good job of telling the women who are amongst the highly desired within the group that, okay, at some point in your life, you're going to have to rely on more than your looks. When you get into these spaces and you're having conversations with people who are active in the community, they're they're rubbing elbows with Congress people and all these other people, you better be able to hold a conversation. It reminds me, I don't know if y'all watch The Golden Girls, but it reminds me of when Rose was dating that college professor, Miles, and they went out in a situation where they were out with all of his friends. So there are all these very, very intelligent people. And, Rose was a sweetheart. She had like, she had like the really big eyes. And so in a lot of places, people probably thought she was a sweet woman and things of that nature. But then you walk into a room of really, really smart people and you can't hold a conversation. Like you literally cannot hold a conversation because the stuff they're talking about is way above your head. And I'm wondering if that's what Ayesha Curry is going through. Because I think too, with some of these guys, once they have a certain amount of money and they've been in certain spaces, a pretty face doesn't faze them the way that it used to. Because everywhere they go, they're running into women who would be amongst the most attractive women, or viewed as attractive women, right? So they get to this place where they're probably looking for more than, a pretty face and curves. Yes, yes, yes. Amal is winning. I actually like her. I mean, I always assumed that George Clooney either wouldn't get married or that he would marry a model. But when I was like, okay, who's this Amal lady? And I read up on her and I was like, oh my goodness, like she's a smart woman. So you see what I'm saying? Since he's around really wealthy people and people who probably are very intelligent, his wife can be in those spaces and be completely comfortable. And there are some men who pay attention to that. They do. Yes, we have to be the total package. We have to. And I think that's for women in general, right? But especially women who are Black or women who are classified as Black, because I understand that some people don't feel like biracial women should be viewed as Black, but in the general public, they are classified as Black women. And we have to be the total package, because I'm just telling you, ladies, as you get older, you're not going to be able to rely on your looks as much. People are okay with like a 20 or a 20-year-old woman being really pretty and not having a lot of depth to her, okay, in terms of having conversations. But when you're 30s and 40s and older, it's not cute to be pretty and to be a ditz, okay? It's not cute to be pretty and dumb as you get older. And it can actually make you seem more charming if you're over 30 and you're attractive and you're intelligent. That's actually a good thing. And I'm not saying that Ayesha Curry is dumb. I'm not saying that at all, because obviously to be able to get into her own business ventures, she has to have some intelligence, right? But, being fair and objective, she probably was able to get access to those opportunities because of who her husband is, okay? But I'm just saying, I'm telling you, the vibe I'm getting from her is, oh my gosh, I'm no longer the prettiest chick in the room. Yep, you can't afford to lead with your looks forever. You said the light skin privilege fades. I believe it does too, because I've seen that with some of the women in my family. Like on my mom's side of the family, she has some family members who are very lighter skinned, but they're accomplished women, so they never rested on their complexion. Do you know what I'm saying? But I have seen other women who do that. They just assume that all they have to do is be pretty. Yeah, we do need to take the L for colorism as a collective. Because like I said, I mean, it's just not fair, and it's very emotionally and psychologically damaging to dark skin and brown skin Black women. And I also feel like in a way it's emotionally damaging to lighter skin Black women, because as a collective, Black men do not treat any Black woman well, right? And with the lighter skinned women, I do kind of think like you do a disservice to a little girl if you make her think that all she has to do is be pretty, you know, and you don't tell her that she has to have some substance to her as well. That's very true. The men with the decent jobs want to know your education, your career goals, and all that stuff. Why? Because the other men in their social circle have wives and girlfriends who are accomplished. And in my opinion, men do kind of judge themselves based on where they fit with their peers. So if a guy is like 42 and he's dating a 32-year-old woman, he doesn't want to feel like, okay, I can't bring her around anyone because the girl can't, you know, she can't hold a conversation with my friends. Yeah, lighter skinned Black women are being objectified, and darker skinned women are not uplifted. I'm telling you, so it's like what we go through is like the opposite. A lot of darker skinned women, myself included, I never thought I was ugly, but I never thought of myself as like attractive until I got older and I moved in different spaces and I was around people who didn't base attractiveness solely on complexion. You know, they base it on certain features, or, you know, for them, you look good. If you look good to them, you look good. And it doesn't matter if you're the darkest of the dark or the palest of the pale, you know? But I'm telling you, I'm starting to wonder if it's the opposite for some lighter skinned women, particularly those who might be biracial. I'm wondering if they grow up and you know, you're just automatically prized and valued because of your complexion, or if you have lighter eyes, and then they grow up and realize, well, wait a minute, I walk into certain spaces and I'm just average. Hey, Blackberry Blossom, you said I can't agree to this. Where I work, I see women who lead with their looks and are women. I honestly feel as long as you look good, men don't care about the rest. This is just my perspective. I appreciate your perspective, Blackberry Blossom. You know, I've observed the opposite. I think that some men, and again, it might depend on, I've heard guys say that they don't care about the other stuff, but I know when I was dating, once I was over like 24 or 25, if I was dating a guy who had a good job and he was in a social circle where all of his male friends were accomplished with good jobs, they started to ask me questions more along the lines of, you know, what are your goals? You know, what type of work do you do? You know what I'm saying? And they started to pay attention to whether or not I could hold a conversation and whether or not I would fit into their social circles. That's true too, psychologists. It could depend on the age range and other factors. It could depend on that. Because since I was in my mid 20s, I never dated guys that were my own age. I think the youngest guy I dated was like maybe 7 or 8 years older than me. But most of the guys I dated were 8 to 12 years older than me. And so, like, my husband is almost 12 years older than me. So it's like, because he's almost 50, looks mattered to him, but I think it was also important to him that, okay, you're not with a woman who can't at least hold the conversation. Okay, you said I've heard guys say that all the time. Okay, I've heard guys say all the time that they want a woman. This is a woman who looks good and is dumb as hell. I've seen some guys do that, Blackberry. I'm just thinking like the social class that a guy like Steph Curry is in. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, mm, I have seen I've seen guys who aren't used to being around ultra attractive women go for looks. But the guys that I've personally known who are used to being around really attractive women, at some point they want their woman to be attractive, right? Like everyone, uh, women and men, we want to be with someone who's attractive, right? Because you want to be attracted to the person. I'm just saying that I think that if men are used to being around good looking women, then they start to look for more. Psychologist said, I'm telling you, engineers, doctors, etc., these type of men want an educated woman with a decent job. That's personally what I've observed. Yeah, the job doesn't have to be stellar, but do something and have goals. I'm telling you, especially if they're used to being around good women. You said, but look at all those other NBA players' wives. They're not that educated. Hmm. Yeah, a lot of the guys that met their wives really young. That's possible. But I don't think it's just about education, though, because some of those women who are in certain social classes and they're married to like really successful men, they may not have a lot of education, but they're very industrious women. So there's a YouTube channel that I follow, and I don't know how I came across this woman's channel, but her husband is a very wealthy guy. And her YouTube channel, she's like a woman kind of in her 50s. She might be a little older than that. But on her channel, she talks about, how to be stylish as a woman of a particular age. And she also vlogs about her personal life. And she doesn't work outside of the home, but she's really involved in her country club and certain charitable organizations. So her worldview about certain things is very open-minded because she's exposed to that through the work that she does. Do you see what I'm saying? And so I don't think that she has the same education level as her husband, but when she goes into his social circle, and you know how the men do, they're off talking somewhere, and so the women are sitting and talking, she can hold conversations with those people because she's not she's not someone with a limited view of things. Yeah, psychologist, I think most men, if men can access attractive women, that's what they want. I'm just saying, I think that if men have access to highly attractive women, right, then at a certain point, they want the woman who has looks, who can also fit in with their social circle. Some of the Insta models, do use their looks to do well, but how many of those women have you seen that are also like homeless? Do you know what I mean? So I've seen some of those women, whether they're Instagram models and they get paid through doing ads. So anytime, you see someone do a picture and they post it on Instagram and they say, oh, I'm wearing this outfit and I got it from Fashion Nova, that's a paid ad, right? But I've also heard there was one of those women that kind of got into it with another lady on YouTube, and that woman was homeless. And there's another woman who was using her looks for like adult content, okay? And she is also living in her car. They definitely want looks, but I'm telling you, I think as they get older, some of them also go the George Clooney route, where they want looks, but they also want you to have some substance to you. Like, I don't know, I could be totally wrong, but I think men who just desire looks, they end up being like the Hugh Hefners of the world, right? Every time you see them, they have a new young woman on their arm. Do you know what I mean? Because they just want the looks. But I think that if a guy gets with or is with a woman that's like 35 or 40, I don't think it's enough to just look good. But yeah, looks, the way you look is the first thing that people see about you. So to get your foot in the door, you do have to have the looks, you know? But yes, definitely to get your foot in the door and to get access to certain men. You're right. You do have to have the looks. But to be able to hold his attention, I think you have to come with a little bit more than that. I'm telling you, that's why Kim Kardashian is doing an image change. And the way that she's going to transform in the next 5 to 10 years is going to be very interesting. It's going to be very, very interesting. You know, people who have observed her over the years will not recognize her once she's done with her image reset. Yeah, I think once you go up the ranks, I mean, I'm not gonna lie to y'all, I'm gonna be honest with y'all. Regular dudes who aren't used to attractive women, absolutely. Their noses are wide open and they will go for the best looking woman that they can get and they don't pay attention to substance. Yes, men who are not accustomed to attractive women. I'm just saying, these men who have a lot of money and everywhere they go, there's a beautiful woman. They want more. Yes, yes, yes. She wants the Amal relevance. And I'm telling you, now don't get me wrong, Kim K will always, look good because she's always going to pay for the surgeries and stuff like that. And she's in a social class, right? Where, the women get, what do they get? Like the lip fillers. I've even seen women get jaw fillers because apparently that can make you look younger. They're getting the fat transferred, or they're getting stuff done here and there, to keep themselves up. So Kim Kardashian will always look good, but you're in spaces where all the women look good and some of them are really, really smart, or they're really, really charitable. So it just doesn't work over time to be pretty and have nothing of substance. To be pretty and the only thing you can talk about is like makeup and hair. Yep, they are a dime a dozen for well-off men. Yep, Botox and rhinoplasty. They get all those surgeries, which is nothing wrong with that. Listen, because I'm not above a little bit of a nip tuck myself, okay? But I'm just saying that it's not enough. Over time, it's not enough if you're with a guy who's like a Steph Curry and in that social class. And I think that's Ayesha Curry's thing. I really do. And that's why I'm not dragging her, because I get where she's coming from. Like, I don't get it in a way where I feel like I've personally experienced it, but I have, like I said, observed it in other people. That's cool, Blackberry. Because I've heard that a lot of those procedures are so routine now that you're basically like in and out. Yep. They run their men's charities. You know, they do a lot. They do a lot. And they end up being very cultured because of the experiences that they have. So I don't think Ayesha was saying, uh, oh, I want men in the DMs. I think this is just her very publicly dealing with the realization that as time has passed, you know, she's no longer the prettiest woman in the room, and she may not even be one of the top 10 pretty women in some of the rooms that she walks into, you know, because again, you're going into rooms where basically everyone has your same look. So in the spaces that she's in, she's just average. And I think that can be very jarring. And listen, any woman I think would feel disrespected if, it's like, okay, these women know that my husband's a married man and they're still approaching him. Like any woman would feel disrespected. I'm just saying that there are certain things that come along with dealing with high profile men. And one of the things that comes with that is understanding that because people are selfish, there are going to be women that throw themselves in him. And her thing is to just make sure that he's faithful to her and that he's loyal to her. If he's loyal to her, don't worry about those other women. It just comes with the territory. He's faithful to her. He's not giving those other women the time of day, and he's not cheating on her. Then, you can't control what those women do. Right. We want to level up. That's very true, Blackberry. Yeah, she's realizing she's no longer Charlotte's finest. And, another thing I did think of psychologists, because I think their youngest kid might be like under a year old. So I do wonder if part of this may be like postpartum. I did think about that. That's kind of why I'm not dragging her. But I feel like she needs to not say some of this stuff so publicly until she can really work through her feelings. Oh, okay. Steph is too nice in Ayesha's opinion. He's unaware when women are hitting on him and she does not feel seen. This is the gag. I can see that point. So she feels like he doesn't do a good job at shutting it down. I can see that. I mean, he does seem like a really nice guy. I'm just saying, it's like, okay, Ayesha, you're married to a multimillionaire. You don't want a bunch of broke, regular dudes in your DMs. The guys that would DM you would probably be guys that you wouldn't be interested in. Oh, she takes anxiety meds? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did wonder if some of this was postpartum. Yeah, Ayesha, I don't know. Everyone has the right, she has the right to do interviews and stuff. She just doesn't come over very well in interviews. But I think it's just because she doesn't express herself very well. But I don't think she's a bad person. I don't think um I don't think she's trying to be arrogant, but that's just how it comes across. want her to do well too, Blackberry. You know, I don't think she's a bad person. And it's not really her fault that she comes from a collective that uplifts certain women without preparing them for reality, which is you're not going to be able to rely on your looks forever. But she's a big girl now. You know, she's a grown woman now. So she has to realize that. You know, she has to realize it and make whatever adjustments that she needs to make so that she doesn't keep getting in these crazy situations. Oh, she said she had to introduce herself, psychologist. So part of this then is she feels disrespected by him. Yeah, psychologist. You said she reminds me of my biracial friend, very sensitive and strong-minded. Yeah. Yeah. She's got to get out of that because you know how people are. When people know they can get under your skin, they will do it. They will do it. Do you know what I'm saying? So he needs to do what he needs to do to make sure that he's not disrespecting her in those situations. And she needs to stop letting the world know that this stuff bothers her. Because you know how some of these heifers out here are, y'all. They will realize that they're doing something to get under your skin and they will keep doing it. Oh, yeah, she might be having a mental breakdown, Blackberry. Because I'm telling you, I thought postpartum, when I heard her kind of saying this, because I was like, well, I think their youngest kid is like not even a year old. So, you know, her saying she doesn't feel seen and she doesn't feel as attractive, you know, I did wonder about that. Oh, she seemed like she was about to cry. He said he needs to protect her better. Yeah. Yep, Kaylin, I thought about that too. You said maybe dudes call themselves respecting her. She came off as a moral authority of sorts. Plus, they're probably doing it out of respect for Steph Curry's too. Yep, that's one thing I said a little bit earlier. Like the guys in their social class would have to be jerks to try to approach her knowing that she's married. Yeah, psychologist. I mean, it's okay for her to be open, but I think it is going to backfire because it's just you're communicating this message to people who will never have the access to the type of money that you have, and you're basically saying that having the attention and affection of your very successful, very wealthy husband is not enough for you. But that's what made me think, well, she did just have a baby. Maybe it's postpartum. Yeah, a lot of us don't take mental illness seriously, Blackberry. Yes, psychologists. There are women who don't respect married women in the way that men will usually respect a married woman. And men will usually show the respect more so to that woman's husband. And also, I've heard men say that one of the easiest ways to endanger yourself as a man is to approach a man's wife. You know what I'm saying? So a guy has to be on some stuff where he just completely doesn't care to approach a man's wife. Now, we know it happens, right? But I'm just saying, you know, I don't know if other NBA players or, you know, coaches would approach Steph Curry's wife. You know, I just don't know if that would happen. Yeah. Yeah, see, that's why I don't want to drag her. Because I'm like, we don't know what she's going through. But I hope that there's someone in her life telling her, like, girl, talk to a counselor. You know, because their kids are relatively back to back, right? Let me look that up. Let me see. Let me see how old their kids are. Okay, they have 3 kids. Okay, they have one that's turning 7, one that will turn 4 this year, and then the baby was born last July. So they have a 6-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 10-month-old. Yeah. Yeah, this might be postpartum, you guys. Yeah, 3 kids, really close, and then because he's in the NBA, he's not home a lot probably because he's working. He's working. So you're dealing with 3 young kids by yourself, and then when you are with your husband, women are approaching him in your face, and oh my gosh. Yeah. See, now I'm glad that I didn't like drag her. I don't know, y'all. I think this is postpartum. Because I read something that said that some women can deal with postpartum like up to like a year or 2 after their kids are born. So, yeah. Um, you said she needs to go shopping, Blackberry. One thing I've noticed about a lot of us as women is as we start to deal with more responsibilities, we don't take a lot of time for ourselves. And I wonder, I'm sure they have nannies and like help with the kids, but I wonder if it would be beneficial to her to have like 1 or 2 days a week where the nannies watch the children and she leaves the house. Do you know what I mean? But she leaves the house to do something that's not related to her being a mom or a wife or her businesses. But you leave the house to go to the beach or to be part of a book club, like to do something that's just for you. I wonder if that would help her. Right, with all of Steph's money. Right. 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 Because she needs to stop having these conversations so publicly. And if she feels like she's dealing with unresolved emotions and stuff like that, I really think she should try some counseling. Because I did see a story like that. This one lady, her and her husband had 5 kids, like just back to back to back to back. And she had severe postpartum, and that story didn't end very well because she ended up hurting her children. And they, when they were investigating and stuff like that, they ended up realizing that this was a woman who suffered from a severe case of postpartum and never dealt with all of her feelings and her emotions. Yep, she does need to prioritize her self-care, psychologist. Because unfortunately, we live in a world, where you can say the wrong thing publicly and people will mercilessly drag you without, they will just mercilessly drag you. But, again, I think I said this on my other channel. I do have to point out that, when she was saying all of this stuff about how other women should and shouldn't do this, she had no problem when these people were using her words as a weapon against other women. And so, hopefully this situation is just kind of a lesson for her, to understand, like, not to be so judgmental of other women. Because I'm sure she's now realizing how it feels to be judged and possibly misunderstood, Yes. Regardless of the countless beautiful women and other issues, Ayesha is married to Steph. So yeah, she's surprised and she needs to take care of herself. And taking care of herself might mean counseling. You said, Blackberry, you said, do you think it's wise for women to marry a man the same age as herself? It depends. It depends. I mean, it's based on what you're into. Some women are not attracted to older men. You know? Mm, for me, I personally like older men because they're more stable. You know, that's one of the things I love about my husband is that, you know, he's out of the immature phase that guys go through. A lot of guys are not really mature, in my opinion, at least until they're 30. And also, usually, unless a guy has been completely irresponsible, usually men of a certain age, you know, they're established in their career, so they're financially settled. And so, you know, if financial stability is a concern for you, in a lot of cases, not all the time, but in a lot of cases, some guys who are really young are just not at a point in their lives where they're going to have that stability because they haven't worked long enough to get there. You know? You said, good question. I personally prefer older men who are more situated, but age does not mean maturity, so it depends. That's a good point. You said, I prefer older men too. And you said anything under 45 is useless. Kai College is the Beyonce. Yeah. Yeah, because Jay is, what, 11 or 12 years older than Beyonce. Yeah. Listen, she didn't just marry him because she fell in love with him. I mean, I'm sure that was a part of it because they were together for a few years before they got married. But I'm sure his financial situation helped. And Jay-Z's another example. He has a lot of money. He could have married, you know, he could have married any woman, but he married a woman who has money of her own. You know, now people will point out, oh, she doesn't have Jay-Z's money, but how many 36 or 37-year-old women are worth, you know, $350 million? So he married a woman who did well for herself. You know? Yeah, I think 45 can be a good age. Yeah. Like I said, as long as the man has been responsible in his life and focused, then absolutely, it can be a good age. But like I said, I know some women, like my husband's sister, she does not like older men at all. You know, she prefers younger men. So I guess, you know, it just depends on what you like. Well, y'all, I just wanted to share my thoughts on this Ayesha Curry situation. And yeah, let's keep an eye on her. Maybe at some point she'll make an announcement. If she is dealing with postpartum, she doesn't owe it to anyone to tell us that. But I wouldn't be surprised if at some point in the future she acknowledges that that could be where some of this came from. And, you know, I just hope that in general, when we hear women expressing these kind of things, and we're giving our opinions as women, you know, we do kind of need to think about the things that we go through emotionally and mentally, and hormonally, you know, as women have children. I mean, I don't have any children myself, but I've seen other women go through postpartum. And, you know, we got to think about making sure that we uplift all of our Black girls, right? And we have to make sure that we let all of our girls know that no matter how beautiful they are, that they want to be able to rely on more than their looks, so that they don't get to this space in their lives where it's jarring to them to no longer be the prettiest girl in the room. I'm glad you enjoyed it, Blackberry. I enjoyed talking to you all. Psychologist said as long as they fit the hypergamy standards, I'm good. Yeah. Yeah. I might eventually want to have kids. I mean, even if we just adopt. Ideally, I only want to go through childbirth one time. Okay. So I wouldn't mind like having one child biologically and then adopting a second one. But that's a different conversation, y'all. But there are a lot of people on here talking about Ayesha Curry. So, please tune into those conversations because I'm sure they're going to be interesting. And I want to thank Psychologist and Blackberry for participating in the chat. I really enjoyed talking to you all. I want to thank everyone else who's watching live. And I also want to say hello and thank you to anyone who may catch the playback. If you have anything to add to the conversation, please add it in the comment section. And I will talk to you all soon. Bye.